Hey everyone, Shanna McEachern here from IPC. If you saw my last post, you know that I just got back from the Equities Leaders Summit down in Miami. In my last video, I gave a brief overview of what I heard, and in this video, I wanted to really focus on one particular topic of interest at that event, and that's MiFID II and the impact of research on bundling. Here's what I heard. So what was said about MiFID II and research on bundling at the Equities Conference in Miami? Under MiFID II regulation, research must be paid for with a separately defined price tag as opposed to being bundled together as a holistic service as was done in the past. This shift in regulation is meant to ensure that asset managers are not being induced to trade. Because of this, buy-side firms at the Equities Conference down in Miami had some significant concerns and uncertainty about how they were going to manage research going forwards. One of the first concerns seemed a simple question, but nobody had the answer. So how do you define research? What constitutes research and what doesn't? If someone tells me the latest bid-ask spread, does that constitute research? When years-old relationships between asset managers and their brokers become chummy, it becomes harder to differentiate what constitutes actual research as a professional service from just casual conversation. If the answer is hidden in the MiFID II fine print somewhere, this information has clearly not made it to the asset managers who need to understand it and take action upon it. The second concern was around controlling what information actually makes it to your inbox. Under MiFID II, it is explicitly the buy-side's responsibility to ensure that unsolicited research doesn't come into their hands. If you receive an email that contains research, you're obliged to pay for it, no matter whether or not you plan to use it. Roles to ensure that their investment teams are only receiving the research that they expect and desire. The need to manage this type of information exposure has formed the pop-up of several new vendors offering techie management solutions. Unfortunately, these type of information exposure solutions don't come for free either. How will unbundled costs and shrinking budgets affect the buy-side broker relationships? Relationship between the buy-side and the broker. Based on another study that was presented at the Equities Leaders Summit, we expect to see a 10 to 30% reduction in research spend in 2018 across European buy-side firms. That's a huge figure. Now, what does that mean for the research provider? Will they still provide the same level of service if they expect a 30% reduction in spend? Or will they expect to see that 30% made up elsewhere, perhaps in execution? Interestingly, a separate but complementary study suggested that while we do expect to see a 10 to 30% reduction in spend, we also expect to see a reduction in the number of brokers that the buy side actually deal with. So, for any given broker, the spend might remain approximately the same. The issue then becomes remaining on that broker list. To do that, research providers are going to have to ensure that their research is more valuable than ever. What's more, in the new MiFID II world, firms will feel pressure to justify lines of communication that they'd previously taken for granted. When spend is really being assessed, we also expect to see an uptake in recording, TCA, and circuit management. To sum it up, buy-side firms at the Equities Leaders Summit had three main concerns. The first was how to define research, and that's something we might not have an answer for at this time. The second is how to control which research makes it to your inbox. That's something that we may need new techie vendors for. And the third is how to approach the sensitive buy-side broker relationships when someone's getting cut. Thanks for listening. IPC are continuing to think about our customer base and ensuring that those firms can continue to connect to their counterparties and research providers in an ever-changing landscape. Feel free to reach out with questions, comments, or to talk to IPC about how we can connect you to your counterparties in a secure and compliant way, even post MiFID II.